All right, in the last video that we did, we created two variables that have the same name. So first of all, it's not a good idea to have multiple variables that have the same name. But I did that because I want to talk about variable scopes. So what is a scope? A variable scope or a function scope is the context or location where a variable is available. So let's take a look at this. I'm going to delete all of this and I'm going to create a new variable and I'll call it just number. Var number equals 1. So right now, if I console log number, I'll put a string with it, number, colon, and then I'm going to add the number. When I run this function, I'll get number 1. So this variable, var number 1, is considered a global. Because this is available, because this variable is created outside of a function, it's not inside of an object or anything like that. Any other function or any other code inside of this file can access this variable and use it, just like this console log statement did. When you create functions, that function has its own scope. So if I create a function, I'll call it add. I'm just going to I'll give it a parameter called new number, and I will return number plus new number. So now I'm going to call this function with a new number. I'll say variable sum equals add, and I'll just say 1. I'll say 2. So what this function is doing is it is taking a new number and it's returning a new value, which is the variable number, which is available right here, plus the new number that I'm passing in. So sum is going to be the result of in this case, the number 2, the new number, plus this variable. And I can access this variable inside of this function because it's a global. A function can access any global variable. So let's run this. I'll console log sum plus sum. I get the sum is 3 and the number is 1. So because this function has its own scope, I can create other variables inside of it. So if I come here now and I say var number equals, let's say 5, now I have a global variable named number and I have a local variable named number. A local variable is a variable that is created and only available inside of a function's scope or inside of a function's execution body. So you can see now when I run this code that what's going to happen is the computer is going to create a variable called number. It's going to be equal to 1. And when I call this function add, it's going to create a local variable called number. And when I return number plus new number, this function will use the local variable before it uses the global variable. So essentially what this function is going to do is inside of this function, it's going to override this variable and use it right here. So let's look at this. We should get a sum of 7 and it still says number 1. So we passed in the number 2, but the function used the local variable before the global variable. So a lot of this could really be avoided by calling this something different like local number and using it instead. Same thing, but we need to understand variable scoping, that a variable that is a global can be used inside of any other function. Let's take one more look at this as well. Global variables can also be mutated by functions, or in other words, they can be changed. So if I come in here, I'll say function, I'm going to change this to change number, and I'll say new number. And now, I'm not going to create a new number, I'm just going to use the global one. I'll say number equals new number. So what's happening here is, I'm not creating a new number. If I were creating a new number, I would put the var keyword before it. And I'm saying that the new number is going to be equal to, or I'm setting it to, whatever number I give it. So say change number. And now when I run this function, it'll say number is 2. Number is 2. So I'm going to copy this line of code, and I'm going to put it before I run the function and then after. So what's going to happen is the variable is created. I create this function that changes the number. It takes the global variable and gives it a new value, which I pass in as a parameter. It's going to print out the number is number, and then I'm going to change the number. And I'm going to console log the numbers, the new number. Number 1, number 2.